Tonight, for the first time during this pandemic, and in one of the first times in New York City history, we are looking for a view from you. Maybe you're a small business owner and you need help reopening, or you want to give the city input on how to reopen and how to help, or maybe you patronize small businesses and want to give the city guidance. This show is for you. We'll ask for your input by phone, text message, and social media. The city will use your input to better assist small businesses and the community as a whole. Tonight's broadcast is made possible by the NYC Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings, otherwise known as OATH, the city's independent administrative law court. It's where people go to resolve summonses they receive from the city's inspection and enforcement agencies. Each year, OATH receives more than 800,000 summonses. Nearly half of all summonses fought through the OATH hearing process are dismissed. We also have support from NYC's Department of Small Business Services. SBS helps unlock economic potential and create economic security for all New Yorkers by connecting New Yorkers to good jobs, creating stronger businesses, and building thriving neighborhoods across the 5 boroughs. Good evening. We speak to you tonight from New York City, which is home to some 237,000 small businesses and nearly 3.7 million employees of those small businesses. And they have undoubtedly gone through tremendous challenges and hardship over the last few months as we work our way through this pandemic. Tonight, we are providing them and all of you with an opportunity for direct contact and direct conversation with key decision makers at the City of New York to help influence the way that the city comes back from the pandemic. So tonight is very much going to be focused on your comments and your input and your stories. You can join us tonight by calling 888-410-3427. That's 888-410-3427. En español, 844-881-1317. That is in Espanol simulcast. You can also tweet us using the hashtag #ViewFromYou. You can text the phrase "view from you" with no spaces to 22333. So you text the phone number 22333, the message "view from you," no spaces. You can also visit pollev.com/viewfromu to participate on the web. So we're going to be asking some poll questions right off the bat. We're then going to introduce you to a few panelists, get to some questions from the panelists to you, then begin to take your comments either live over the air or via text message or tweet, and then get some reflections from the panel. We are very excited to have you with us and look forward to your comments. So we'll get started right away with a question: where are you? In what borough do you live or operate your business? So again, you can text the phrase "view from you" to 22333. That gets you into the polls. And then once you've done that, you can text the letter corresponding to your choice. If you're listening on the phone, you will be getting instructions from the operator as to how to participate. But if you're looking at the screen, you can text "view from you" to 22333. And then once that text goes through, choose A, B, C, D, E, or F. You can also visit pollev.com/viewfromu to participate in the polls on the web. Again, in what borough do you live or operate your business? So if you're in the Bronx, you would choose A, Brooklyn B, Manhattan C, Queens D, Staten Island E, and outside of New York City F. So we'll wait just a moment. We see on the phone, we have quite a representation from Manhattan, followed by Brooklyn and the Bronx. And we're seeing some poll responses coming in over text message. We'll move on to our next question, which gets to finding out a little bit more about who's on the line. We've talked a little bit about where you're from, but we'd like to know a little bit more about what kind of business you are a part of. So if you are part of a restaurant, either you own a restaurant or you work at a restaurant, you would choose A. If you own or work at a nightclub bar, you would choose B. A retail establishment would be C. A grocery or a deli would be D. A beauty salon or other kind of beauty-related establishment would be E. Other would be F. And if you're not an employee of a business like this or an owner of one, you can choose G. So again, up on the screen are a number of different types of businesses that you can share with us that you might be a part of. A would be restaurant, B would be a nightclub or a bar, C would be a retail store or establishment, D would be grocery or deli, E would be some sort of beauty place, F would be other, and G would be none. So it looks like we've got a lot of folks who don't fit into one of those categories. So it'll be interesting to hear some of the comments that we get tonight from folks who are part of other industries than that. So we'll wait just another second or two, and then we will introduce you to our panelists tonight. So we want to welcome some distinguished panelists tonight, beginning with the Commissioner and Chief Administrative Law Judge of the Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings, also known as Oath. She was appointed to her position in mid-March, just before the city was shut down. In her role as the Commissioner of Oath, she works to ensure that New Yorkers have equal access to justice and that the city remains a clean and safe place. She was formerly Director of the Mayor's Office of Appointments and First Deputy Director in the Mayor's Office of City Legislative Affairs. She's also an attorney by training. Commissioner Joni Kletter, please welcome to A View from You. It's great to have you here with us.
Thank you so much.
Next, we want to welcome the City of New York's Commissioner of Small Business Services, a position he was appointed to last month after a long tenure at the city in other roles. He's charged with running a dynamic city agency focusing on the equity of opportunity that leads to economic self-sufficiency and mobility for New York City's diverse communities. SBS actively connects New Yorkers to good jobs, creates stronger businesses, and builds a thriving economy in neighborhoods all across the 5 boroughs. He was previously the leader of the Office of Minority and Women-Owned Businesses, or rather enterprises, and he was Chief Diversity Officer for the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. Commissioner Janelle Dorris, welcome to A View from You. Great to have you. And finally, we want to
welcome. Larry. Great to be here.
Finally, we want to welcome one of the city's leading restaurateurs. She was, as she likes to say, born, bred, and buttered in Harlem, her words. Today, she proudly represents her New York neighborhood as one of the most successful African-American women in the restaurant and catering businesses. She owns Melba's Restaurant, Melba's Mussels, and Melba's Catering. She has been in business some 16 years and has served over 2.5 million guests. So another 1.2 million, and she will have served everyone who works at a small business in New York City. She's also president of the NYC Hospitality Alliance. Ms. Melba Wilson, welcome to A View from You. Thanks for being here.
Larry, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Let me start with Commissioner Kletter and just ask you kind of what are you most wanting to learn from your audience tonight?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I want to first thank Dr. Larry Schooler for producing this program and moderating for us tonight. And I want to thank my co-panelists for joining me on this very important topic. At Oath, we process and adjudicate summonses for almost every city agency that issues violations. There's over 800,000 summonses that are issued every year. And we are in a unique position to understand some of the burdens that small businesses are facing right now, since we're the ones required to adjudicate the cases and impose violations when penalties are found. We're a neutral and impartial court. We don't favor one side over the other. And we provide a crucial service through our help center to assist respondents who appear without an attorney. One of my first tasks when I came to Oath 3 months ago was to install a small business unit in our help center so that we could further assist small businesses who we know are dealing with challenging times right now. And I should note that during the COVID crisis, we transitioned to remote hearings, which are telephonic and video hearings, which we've been doing for the last 3 months. And we've adjudicated over 10,000 cases during that time. And our help center has assisted over 3,000 people. So I've just been so impressed with the team at Oath, and it's really a testament to their hard work in terms of what we've been able to accomplish. So I'm interested in hearing about the challenges that small businesses are facing, and I will take the information that we gather this evening and use it through my conversations with the agencies and with City Hall so that we can really make some progress in terms of moving forward and helping the city reopen and helping small businesses.
Commissioner Dorris, what are you most interested in hearing from the audience tonight?
Well, thanks, Larry, and again for hosting us this evening, and of course to my friend Joni Kletter and our commissioner there at Oath, and the remarkable entrepreneur and leader Melba Wilson. We have a really great panel today. Look, this is an incredibly important conversation we're about to have tonight. about the future of small business in our city. That means that, we have to hear from these businesses, understand their challenges, but also really present solutions to help them survive and thrive. New York City means business. Our small businesses, as I go about the city and I hear from them, they're tough, they're resilient, and they're coming back. But they need help to do that. They need our help to succeed, and we're going to do everything we can to help them. We've been actively working to save as many small businesses as possible and connect them to our businesses, solution centers and resources that we have. Tonight, really, I'm ready to listen and to hear from small business owners on their most pressing issues and how SBS can step in and to be a guide and help and a resource for them. As you mentioned, rightfully so, the small businesses are the economic engine and the fabric of our communities. And without them, I'm not sure what we will be doing as a city, or the character of the city is sort of wrapped up in our small businesses. And so, you mentioned 237,000 small businesses, 3.7 million New Yorkers. But one thing that we want to add to that is that 62% of those small businesses are less. So you're talking about really small businesses, micro businesses who are leading the way in the city when it comes to our economic activity. And they are such a necessity. And so I want to hear from them tonight. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your challenges. I want to hear what you going through, particularly in the reopening. How is that playing out in your world? And we're going to take that back and continue to shape our programs to help your needs. So thanks again. I'm happy to be on and looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, Janelle. I'm going to come to Melba in just a second, but I want to alert both our panelists and our team to the fact that I'm going to call a little bit of an audible here, because I can tell that we already have some folks that are wanting to speak to the panel, which is exactly what we had in mind. And in particular, we have a fellow restaurateur who's holding. And so right after Melba Wilson speaks, I'm going to hopefully take Terry from Manhattan. I feel like I'm on WFAN, the sports channel, but I'm going to hopefully take Terry from Manhattan next, as soon as Ms. Wilson gives us kind of her lay of the land. So to the call screening team, stand by with Terry. But Ms. Wilson, Melba, tell us a little bit about what you're hoping to hear tonight and what you want for folks to know from your perspective.
Well, Dr. Schuler, I'd like to first of all thank you so much for having me on this forum. To our Commissioner Doris, and Commissioner Cleater, congratulations on your appointment. And Commissioner Doris, I've been working with you diligently, and I'm super excited about the changes that we look forward to seeing in our communities. But just to sit at the table and to have an opportunity to know that you hear us as small businesses is extremely, extremely important. I, like so many other small business owners, started out literally with $1 and a dream. And so I am not unlike my fellow brothers and sisters in the small business segment. Some of the things that I'm hoping to hear from my fellow small businesses are, I'd like to know what tools and resources that they found helpful, if any, to pivot during this pandemic. I'd also like to know any ideas of things that you need to help during the reopening process. Some of the things that I personally like to share is some of the work and accomplishment that the New York Hospitality Alliance has made, including the delivery fee cap, outdoor dining, sidewalk cafe, rent fees, and centralized PPE distribution for small businesses. Again, I thank you so much for this forum and for an opportunity to listen, but more importantly, to learn.
Thank you so much, Melba. And as I mentioned, I'm going to take a caller here in just a second, but I want to alert folks who are watching us on TV tonight. First of all, thank you. And secondly, we've got a new poll question that we'd like to get some comments on as we're listening to Terry's comments here. The question is, what support is most important to you right now in the context of being either a small business owner or employee, or even a patron of small business? So if you believe commercial rent assistance is most important, you would choose A, loans or grants to repurpose office or commercial space; B, forgiveness of outstanding or unpaid fines from violations; C, lower future fine amounts; D, or business insurance policy payouts and or legal support; E. So we're going to keep that question up on the screen while we get to our first caller. And so we should have
Policy payouts and or legal support.
We're going to have Terry on the line here in just a moment.
Important for small businesses right now. Press 1 if it's commercial rent assistance. Press 2 if it's loans and or grants to repurpose office of commercial.
Sorry about that, everybody. We're giving poll questions out over the phone, so we need to give him a second just to ask that question, and then we're going to go to Terry.
Again, for voting in those surveys, I'll leave that open. We'll be taking questions in a moment here, so a reminder, you can press 0 to submit a question or comment for our Q&A.
Terry, do we have Terry on the line from Manhattan to go ahead? Terry, if you're there.
Yeah, hi. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
You can, yeah, go ahead. Share your thoughts. I know you're a restaurateur.
Yes, we've been on Gramercy Park for 34 years, family-run business, and my problem is my landlord. We owe back rent since we closed March 16th. From then, he wants it all or the keys, and we're trying to negotiate with him, but he's not negotiating. So I have the money to pay him, and if I pay him, I have no more money. I'm out of money. So if we open in July 1st, let's just say July 1st, and we have 5% of our business, how do I pay my rent again? And by me paying him, am I out on the street? At the end of July, he takes us to court. So there's the landlord, he's not negotiating. I'm sure a lot of landlords are not. So what can the mayor do to negotiate or give something to both sides so that we both can survive? I mean, we employ 45 people. Right. And like I said, I just don't know where to go. I'm actually looking at other spaces with a cheaper rent. Maybe that's my thing to move out. I don't know. And I'm sure a lot of other restaurateurs have the same problem.
Well, Terry, thank you for feeding the city and for calling in tonight. We really appreciate it. For those who are already listening on the phone, you can press 0 and you'll speak to a screener and we'll get you on the air. If you're watching us, you can call in on the phone numbers that are at the bottom of the screen, and we can take comments in both English and in Spanish. But for our panelists, Melba, Joni, and Janelle, Commissioner Clutter, Commissioner Doris, and Ms. Wilson, any thoughts as you're listening to what he had to say there?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in since, and Terry, I want you to know that you're not alone. As the president of the New York City Hospitality Alliance, and also as a small business restaurateur in New York, this is a comment and a question that I get often. Most restaurants need help with rent. You have to look at the fact that most restaurants won't be able to pay back multiple months of missed rent, and we're unable to pay pre-pandemic rents under reduced occupancy. So that's a huge problem. We haven't had any income, most of us, for the last 3 months. And even those of us that were open for takeout and delivery, such as myself, we're only able to cap out at 30%. If you look at our payroll expenses, normally that lays somewhere between 30 and 40%. So this is a problem that a lot of our fellow restaurateurs are facing, big and small businesses, and it's definitely something that we need help with.
Yeah, if I can jump in, Melba is absolutely right. The challenges are real there. We're hearing it not only from our restaurants, but most of our mom and pop shops and our small businesses in general, not able to generate the revenue that they normally can, and now they're stuck with a rent bill that is a big challenge. So what we've instituted is a commercial lease assistance program. What that does is give you legal counsel and legal advice for small businesses, also to help you renegotiate with your landlord in order for you to change the lease or restructure it so that it works for you, at least in the interim. And that's free of charge to the businesses. So that's free legal services that we provide. Also, I want to also remind a lot of our restaurateurs that I know everybody may not be up to snuff on all the changes with the Paycheck Protection Program, but recently the president and the Congress did pass and the president signed a change to that program where it moved from the requirements of 8 weeks to now 24 weeks, I believe you have now to get your employees back. That was huge for businesses, small businesses, particularly restaurants and seasonal businesses. And on top of that, the amount of the loan, which is 1%, and it's a forgivable loan that can be used for rent and overhead expenses, is now 40% instead of 25%. So these are real changes that we fought for, that we've gotten, and you will be able to take advantage of that. And lastly, I would say SBS has 40 lenders that we work with to give low interest loans and provide opportunities for, as a business. Again, no one wants to take out additional loans, but if it's something that you need to do, and also we can help you find grants that are out there. So we're certainly here to help you through that and hear that concern.
I want to go to another call. Thank you both for that comment, but we have, I hope I say this name right, Lorcan Otway from Manhattan, who I think wanted to follow up on the prior. Please go ahead.
Yeah, that is perfect. I run a theater and tavern in a building that I own. My family has owned and run this for 56 years. So I'm both the tenant and the landlord. And so those who are calling for a rent forgiveness, I think, are absolutely right. But for the small landlord, we need a break from the taxes. What happens is the tax structure is backwards. The developers get tax breaks. So if you own a single building, we're in the highest tax bracket. You should be taxed by how many buildings you own. If you own one building, they should roll back our taxes. And if you own two buildings, pay a little higher, and the developers should pay their part of this. I realize that the taxation is a state issue, but the city has to demand of the governor that they roll back the property taxes from small single building landlords, or else it's impossible to maintain small and minority-owned businesses in New York.
Really appreciate your call, and it's a timely one when we think about both sides of the equation here. There's obviously folks who are needing assistance paying the rent and folks who are needing assistance sustaining a business that depends on rent. I don't know if our panelists have anything they wanted to share about that or about the poll result. Commissioner Clutter, did you want to respond at all to what you were seeing up on the screen?
So I'm seeing that 23% right now would recommend lowering future fine amounts, 5% are recommending forgiveness of outstanding fines. And I just want folks to know that I am in conversations with a number of the enforcement agencies as we think about creative solutions to ease some of the financial burdens that small businesses are facing. And I'm hopeful that we can continue to work on this as we move forward. So I want people to know we recognize this issue and we are speaking to the agencies, and hopefully we'll come up with some creative solutions shortly.
Before I turn to Commissioner Doris and Ms. Wilson, I just wanted to share, we had a couple of comments come in on our Spanish line that were translated for me into English. One from Nora in Uniondale. Why have there been so many complications helping small business? I have a beauty salon, a small business. It has been closed since March. It has been so hard to get help with finance. It's very hard and complicated to request funds. Commissioner Doris, is there anything you can share just briefly about the different sources of support and relief that there might be? Because we're talking about the city of New York tonight, but obviously there are a number of different potential sources where people can turn for assistance.
Yeah, so if you are in New York City, you can always come to SBS and we will assist you, or you go to nyc.gov/business. And on that page, it will take you through all of the COVID reopening opportunities for assistance and also support that we have. We want to make sure that small businesses have the resources that they need. It is something that's important to us. So, some things that are outside of the city that are actually activated now. The governor had put out the New York Forward loan program. That's if you did not get the Paycheck Protection Program, that's over at the federal government I spoke about not too long ago. And also, if you didn't get that, you can get this New York City programs that you didn't get as well. That program is available to you. And that's everyone in the state. And so it's not just restricted to New York City. So I would say that, that's a resource that you can seek and get assistance for. And as it pertains to understanding some of the challenges that small business face and what they need right now, what we're hearing is clarity on rules and regulatory requirements. We're hearing about access to resources, what we just talked about. And then really about, opportunity to do business, to do commerce. And this is something that's our core function, and we're helping our small businesses do that. We've launched our Restart Hotline. We've put out digital resources. We've got fairs that we were calling it, where we bring a bunch of agencies together to answer questions for small businesses, plain language in guides, and distribution of masks. Those are the things that we have available for small businesses right now.
I have gotten quite a bit of comments that have been coming in the last few minutes. Many of them have been summarized for me in writing. So for those of you who haven't heard your comments shared yet, know that we are going to share some additional comments that have been made in writing. I am noticing up on the screen, Commissioner Doris, and it's in fairly large font, not a deliberately oversized font, but I know that you at one time in MWBE utilization. If you share anything in response to the comment that was made up on the screen, can you please mandate MWBE utilization, which I believe stands for Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprises. And I'm just curious your thoughts, and maybe to share some as well. But Commissioner Doris?
Absolutely. We are, the city has a local Law 1 program, an MWBE program, which I was excited and happy and privileged to run for the last almost 4 years at the city. We took the city from 8%, and right before COVID, we were hovering around, we were at 30% utilization. We did about $14.6 billion to MWBEs, and so there is a mandate, there is a requirement for MWBE utilization, and we want to make sure that the MWBEs participate in our programs. And so SBS, where I am now, we certify the businesses, but also we provide capacity building programs for them. So if you are in the city, please, again, check us out on the web, sign up for one of our training, the webinars, or if you want to get certified with us. But there is a local law that mandates MWBE utilization, and we've been building on that law for the last several years. And again, with cities at its highest rate. Are we there yet? No, there's more to be done. And Maggie Austin, who just took over our office, is great, and she's going to do a fantastic job. But certainly there is a mandate for MWBE.
I apologize. I know we were getting a little feedback there. I'm going to do my best to reduce that on my side. Apologies for that. I do want to take another call from Patrick in Manhattan, who had some questions related to loans, and then we'll try to get to some other of the written comments that I've received. So I'm thrilled to see how many comments we have. I'm sorry I haven't been able to get to them all, but we should have Patrick from Manhattan standing by. If you'd like to speak on air, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to follow up on the what could be next for small businesses. We were applied for back on March 30th, the EIDL loan with the SBA directly, and were denied that. We didn't receive our denial until May, but they said that there wasn't enough economic damage shown. So I was very surprised about that, but we were very thankful to get the PPP back on May 4th, but we've been using it to bring people back to work. And now that it's been extended, that money is going to run out, and we're going to have to lay people off again because the business isn't coming back as fast. Is there going to be another round of the PPP? we weren't able to apply for the New York Forward because we did receive the PPP. And I'm just wondering if there's going to be something else to help businesses continue in Manhattan.
Commissioner Doris, is there anything you could say in response to that, or others?
Yeah, I'll just jump in quickly. Yeah, I'll just jump in quickly that the idle loan, yes, I mean, we had some challenges there. They ran out of some dollars. I believe it was recently opened back up again. And so, you know, we want to make sure that you check back with your bank and SBA, of course, to make sure that they are you're getting all the resources that are out there. But yeah, look, it's a challenge. I think initially, even in the construction of the PPP, we understand that it was 8 weeks that they had, and everyone thought that, you know, maybe 2 months would be enough, right? And we're finding that, you know, now we're in month 3, going on 4 for the slowdown. And it's really hurting our small business. So what we offer at SBS is, you know, a consultation. You can come in, you know, of course, if you're doing it virtually with us, discuss it, your situation, your specific challenges, and then we will help, you know, point you in the right direction where the opportunities are. Again, we have 40 lenders we are working with our small businesses, and, you know, they are willing and able and ready to help us support our small businesses with some of the financial needs that they have.
I'd like to chime in here,
Yeah, please do.
as well as with the PPP loans that you were speaking about, sir. I'd like to highly recommend that you go to a CDFI, which is what I actually did. My bank that I bank with, I was unable to get approved or for my PPP loan. And then I went to True Fund, which is a CDFI, and literally within hours, I was approved for my PPP loan. So CDFIs, they're used to dealing with small business owners. So that's something that I'd highly like to recommend, is that you consider going either to a small local bank or a CDFI.
Thank you very much. It's great having your level of experience and expertise on the show tonight, because it really helps, I think, some of the listeners and viewers to get some help straight away. I'm going to advance us to the next set of questions. It's another multiple choice question, so I'll ask our team to ask that question of the folks on the phone, and then I've got another caller that I'm going to want to take here. Actually, 2 callers who are both related to this question. So initially we'll hear from Jeff, and then we'll hear from Boris for the team and for the panel. But what guideline do you think you need the most assistance with in order to implement properly? So we've got guidelines associated with face masks for employees and visitors, mandatory social distancing or limitations on capacity, free and available hand sanitizer or a cleaning regime, plexiglass sneeze guards or protective equipment, taking people's temperature or other screenings, or new directional signage. So the question here is, from the city, which of these guidelines do you feel that you need the most assistance with? Is it face masks, social distancing or capacity limitations, hand sanitizer or cleaning regime, sneeze guards, temperature screenings, or new directional signage? Interestingly, so far on the phone, a lot of folks talking about social distancing and limitations on capacity. Melba, I have to think that as a restaurateur, that's a big challenge for you.
Oh, totally. It's a huge challenge. I think this sanitation subsidy is something that we definitely need assistance with, but not just, I mean, definitely in a restaurant, but anyone that comes in contact with the consumer where the business is not transacted online. You know, even if you're going to a supermarket or to a retail store, I'm sure that those small businesses would be in need of, you know, some type of sanitation subsidy as well. Sneeze guard, protective equipment. So I'm in total agreement with B, C, and D. Everything,
Yes.
that a lot of our viewers
Yes.
Are saying.
And yeah. I recognize, as the person who worked with the team to put these questions together, it's very hard to choose one of these, as it was probably on other questions. But I think the the trick here is the city is just trying to make sure they can prioritize the form of assistance that is most needed. So let me go to some callers if I can. So I know that Jeff from Manhattan has been standing by. Jeff, if you're there on the line, please go ahead.
Hi, how are you? Yeah, this is Jeff. Yeah, thank you guys so much for putting this together and for taking my call, my comment slash question. Yeah. My question is regarding well, I guess a lot of people in this similar situation. We're a restaurant, we're in Times Square. Our rent is crazy. Obviously we're trying to renegotiate that with our landlord. We're working on it. Without this outdoor seating, there is, some talk of outdoor seating, some streets being closed. I believe they're closing some streets a few blocks from us. I also am seeing, we're seeing that people already are putting restaurants are putting tables outside against the rules, or putting benches and chairs and things like that. Out in East Village, Lower East Side, West Village, we have drinks being sold out of windows, and they're putting tables and benches, and everybody's drinking on the streets. And so those places that are not following the rules are making some money, and the places that are following the rules are dying. We're probably going to go out of business if we can't do something on the street. So it's kind of a twofold question. Do we understand what the potential penalties are for putting tables on the street, even if we're not authorized to do so? But it's grabbing at, we're falling off a cliff, right? So it's the only chance we have. We get fined $500, but we can make $2,000. Then maybe we can at least, do something for the day. And then two, who decides which streets get closed, and who do you have to, how do you get a street closed in order to survive? And how do we decide as a city which businesses get streets closed and survive and which ones don't? Right. So it's very confusing. And I don't understand exactly, what we should do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know about our panelists, and maybe Melba can speak to this as well, but I've been really struck, just given the circumstances, how many streets have been either, frequently or intermittently closed, and the difference in the way the rhythm of our lives can be, and the impact that can have on restaurant dining and other experiences. But of course, also it has trade-offs associated with it. Melba, any perspective on this before I turn to the commissioners?
Yes. So I am on the Mayor's Small Business Advisory Council. So what we're looking at, what's being proposed right now, and this is temporary, has not been confirmed, is that we're hoping for June 22nd, which is Monday, to be able to do open streets. And what that would entail is that people can come into your restaurant and they can purchase food to go. You would then be able to put out tables and chairs on the sidewalk, and your guests would be able to take the food that they've purchased from indoors out to those tables and chairs and dine outdoors. There right now is no service, so we're not able to go out and serve those guests right now, but hopefully under phase 2, that is what is being proposed at this point. Commissioner, would you like to jump in?
Yes, absolutely. So two things. First, I'll start with a word of caution. I know the date, June 22nd, was put out. And the mayor mentioned today also, that was a date, but we have not yet solidified that that's the start date. We want to make sure all the health metrics are in place. I just really wanted to make sure of that. But yes, so we know that we did put forth a plan a few weeks back at the city council for open restaurants, essentially, where you can, as Melba said, put your, bring outside the furniture that you have existing in your restaurant already, and you can put it on the sidewalk once we begin to go into phase 2. However, there is an application, very small application, so that we can keep track of it. And then you also make sure that you follow the ADA rules and so on and so forth with distancing, and also, again, the social distancing rules. So, look, I feel, I know that, we have a significant amount of pain, particularly with our restaurants. And the city, you know, we really are trying to be creative. The new process is going to be one that is not laborious. It's going to be as easy as we can make it for you. You'll use your own furniture. It's going to be a short time response back to you. The Department of Transportation is the one who's taking it in, because obviously it's curbside. It will be available, and also on the sidewalk will be available for restaurants. So there's some light at the end of the tunnel. This week we're looking to make some announcements where that is concerned, and so some significant clarity was going to come this week from the mayor himself on this issue, and I think it's going to help the industry going forward.
Yeah,
Commissioner Clutter, can you share a little bit more about the enforcement side of things?
Yeah, sure. So from an enforcement perspective, from the agencies that issue these violations, I think you do have to strike a balance, right, between making sure that the city is preventing COVID from spreading. So making sure there's social distancing, making sure that people are wearing their masks, but balancing that with not causing severe financial hardship for these restaurants that need to thrive. And my understanding is the Office of Special Enforcement and the other agencies that will be doing the enforcement will not be issuing many violations over the next few months as folks get up to speed with the new regulations in place. So the city is well aware of the challenges, and you know, we're here to assist you in any way that we can, SBS, myself, and other outreach that's being done to make sure that everyone's aware of the rules and has the guidance.
Yeah, I'd also like to say that that as a small business owner, that it's extremely important that any policies and procedures that are enacted, that they're given enough time for adaptation. You know, we're looking at the 22nd and we still don't have the guidelines. So that's a bit concerning to me. And it worries me that we're looking at opening and we're only a few days away from that. And businesses do need to get prepared. Also, I think that clear guidance is important with no gray areas. The city and the state info shouldn't be in conflict. And I think that we need diagrams and pictures to explain how the tables and the barriers, et cetera, should be arranged. As a small business owner, safety is definitely our number one priority. Safety to our employees, but also to our guests, to our potential guests.
I'm going to go back to a caller in just a moment, but I wanted to make everyone aware of a different question that we've put up on the screen, and I'm going to give our team on the phone a chance to ask this question of the folks that are on the line, which is what policy would be most helpful? We've been talking a little bit about assistance, and I am going to take one more call that relates to direct assistance, but as Commissioner Clutter kind of referenced there, what are some policies that the city could enact that would be most helpful? So that could mean walk-through advisory inspections prior to a so-called real inspection, a cure period for certain violations that don't pose a health risk, violations associated with the new requirements being eligible for settlements or reduced fines or other. Commissioner Clutter, maybe you could you know, kind of expound a little bit on the context you had when you were suggesting this question.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is really helpful for us just to get a sense of what policies people think need to be improved upon or expanded upon. The walkthrough advisory inspections, I know, is something SBS has been doing. And we also at Oath have a help center that, as I mentioned, has a small business unit, and they help people both before and after their hearings. I listened in on some of those help sessions and was amazed at the knowledge and the experience that the help center advocates had in terms of advising respondents with how to handle the hearing process, what evidence to bring, what arguments to make. And so I think I would encourage everyone to utilize our help center when they're facing a summons and come before Oath.
So we're about to take a call from Jeannie in Manhattan, who may be sort of referencing back some of what we were talking about earlier. If you're just joining us, this is a view from you as New York City listens to the needs and interests of small businesses. We're live on YouTube as well as NYC TV. And if you'd like to join us and make a comment on air, you can do so by phone at the phone numbers that are at the bottom of your screen. You can also text us in the ways that are up on the screen, and you can tweet us #ViewFromYou. So we have multiple ways for you to participate. But let's go to Jeannie in Manhattan. If she is there, Jeannie, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I want to know, is there somewhere to go for funding for physical changes that need to be made to old businesses in order to accommodate the social distancing? And would, for example, also would there be an expedited DOB process? You know, particularly like and whether, like, say, grandfathering would be, I guess, protected.
Not sure who.
So I would jump in quickly to say, I think on the funding, again, if you call our hotline or visit us at nyc.gov/business, or our hotline is 888-SBS4NYC. That's 888-727-4692. We will definitely be able to connect you to some resources and connect you to some funders who can assist you. As it pertains to the Department of Buildings, that's a great question. We're definitely going to take that back to our colleagues there. I know they've been working round the clock to make sure that the construction, which by the way is a phase one business industry that came back, that they are compliant, but also that they have the resources that they need. So that's a great question to take back, and certainly you can get us on our hotline to ask that question, but we'll make sure that we circle back with that answer on that question.
Any other comments in response to Jeannie's call, Commissioner Clutter or Melba? Okay. Well, we appreciate the call. So we are going to step aside here for just a minute. We're going to take a short break. We're going to say goodbye and thank you to Commissioner Doris, who I understand has a prior obligation, and he's certainly given us a lot of his time, and we greatly appreciate it. In a very few moments, we're actually going to be welcoming in another city official, Ariel Pallets, who's going to join us from the Office of Nightlife. So we're excited for her to join us. But Commissioner Doris, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We really greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
Care,
all right. Stick around. We will be right back here in just a moment.
Support for tonight's broadcast comes from the Department of Small Business Services. They help unlock economic potential and create economic security for all New Yorkers by connecting New Yorkers to good jobs, creating stronger businesses, and building thriving neighborhoods across the 5 boroughs. From the onset of the pandemic, SBS quickly launched several resources to help reopen business and provide the necessary guidance and support they need. The new set of resources will help business owners navigate the recovery and reopening process through a restart hotline, plain language industry guides, digital resource fairs, and face covering distribution sites. If you are a business and need support, please visit us at nyc.gov/business or call our hotline at 888-SBS4NYC. That's 888-727-4692 or call 311. Comes from the City of New York's Office. As you have begun to hear, during the COVID-19 outbreak, Oath has been able to make all of its services available remotely, including its trials, hearings, help sessions, mediation, and conflict resolution sessions, and its outreach events. Last week, Oath announced it will continue its expanded remote operations through the end of calendar year 2020 to ensure New Yorkers stay safe and healthy while being able to resolve enforcement-related issues. Oath also recently established a small business unit inside its help center. If you are affiliated with a small business and you receive a summons, please reach out to the help center at smallbizhelp@oath.nyc.gov. That's smallbizhelp@oath.nyc.gov to learn how to participate in the Oath hearing process and to learn what else you may need to do to make sure the summons is fully resolved.
Welcome back to A View from You from the City of New York. I'm Larry Schooler, and I'm joined by Commissioner Joni Clutter of the Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings at the City of New York, Melba Wilson of Melba's Restaurants, And joining us now is Ariel Palitz, who is with the New York City Office of Nightlife. And as we were speaking before the broadcast, probably has one of the cooler titles that any city official has ever had. So Ariel, welcome to you. Thank you so much for being part of the broadcast.
Thank you so much, Larry. And of course, thank you to Commissioners Clutter and Doris for including the Office of Nightlife and Melba as well. I truly appreciate the opportunity to join this event and to hear the feedback of New York. Just a little background, the Office of Nightlife was established just a little over 2 years ago. It had never existed in New York City before. And we are a dedicated non-enforcement liaison between the city and the nightlife industry. And for people who don't know what the nightlife industry means, basically it's made up of 25,000 small businesses that include bars, restaurants, clubs, and live music venues and dance clubs as well. And we all know that it's imperative to our economy, to our culture, and our identity that this industry is successful and able to recover and thrive again. And so our office is really here to make sure that the voice of nightlife is heard and represented at the table when decisions are being made that directly affect the way that they're doing business. So as was mentioned earlier, the mayor did announce a plan for expanded seating for bars and restaurants in phase 2. And we know that that announcement and guidelines and more clarity is coming imminently. And so what we really want to know at the Office of Nightlife from this group is, really, in order for this new way of doing business outdoors with operators and patrons and residents, everyone needs to work together and to share the responsibility to get this right and how to coexist, really. So we'd like to know and to get a feel from the industry about what the challenges are going to be, about what it's going to be like to be operating from inside and outside, and how the city can help. And to some callers' earlier point, what we've seen over the last few days is evidence about how this management issue can be a great challenge, not only for the workers and the patrons, but for the residents. And so how can we really do this together to coexist, make sure the businesses are thriving, the patrons are happy, and the residents as well? So I think you have a question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to enable people to start responding to some of the things that you posed there. So we have a question up on the screen, and we invite callers to press 0 and speak to a screener to give a response as well. I am going to take some callers here in just a minute. But the question we have up on the screen is, what is the most important thing for the city to change to make it easier to thrive as a business or resident in New York City? And it is, I think, fairly deliberately open-ended. There are certainly a lot of different ways that the city could influence the way that small business conducts itself. And Melba, in a second, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm not going to do it right away, but I do want to know maybe something that comes to mind for you as we start to see some comments come in over text message and the web. But right now, I want to take a call if I can. Let's see. I should have Lou from East Harlem that I think is standing by. And Lou, if you're there, please go ahead. Lou, are you there? Fortunately, I'm not able to hear Lou. I apologize. So we'll see if we can get Lou back. I wasn't able to hear him on the air. I don't know if anybody else could. But while we're waiting, Melba, can I get some thoughts from you as to kind of the most important thing you think the city could change to make it easier for you to thrive as a business? Unfortunately, she's...
Sure. I see that someone put up on lower fines, and I'm totally in agreement with that. And I think also an opportunity to cure for us, for someone to come out and do a pre-inspection with us and say, this is what we find wrong with your business or something that you need to change, and then give us 30 to 60 days to cure those situations instead of fining us. I personally kind of feel that, you know, as small business owners, oftentimes we don't have the time or the resources to, number one, hire a huge attorney, or to hire, an attorney to fight the fees. And most of us don't have the time to go to court ourselves. So what we often do is we pay the fines. And it's unfortunate, but that's what we do. For me to go to court to fight off a fine or a summons or something like that, that means me taking away time from my business. So I think an opportunity to cure a situation would definitely be helpful. One of the things that I said earlier is giving us information in advance. What can we do differently? Providing us with not just information, but ways to rectify situations would be extremely helpful to us.
And I want to come to Commissioner Kletter here in a second, but I just wanted to sort of flag that, because initially when we were talking about these questions, the word cure didn't quite make sense to me in this context, but now I think I understand. We're talking about ways for the city to affect some correction in the way a business is behaving. But I think what I hear Melba saying is, does that need to be in the form of a summons and a trip to a hearing? And Commissioner Kletter, can you shed any light on kind of the way that this process could evolve, maybe as the city tries to reopen, or
Sure. No, and this is Melba's points are exactly why I wanted to do this town hall today, because I do understand the challenges that people are facing. And as I mentioned before, Oath adjudicates summonses from over 12 different agencies, and these are all agencies that issue violations to small businesses, and it can be complicated. And they're just, it's hard to understand. It's hard to do without a lawyer. And so for one, this is why I'm expanding our help center at Oath, so that we can assist small businesses as they go through this difficult process. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, we are now doing mostly remote hearings, so people don't have to spend half of their day on a subway coming to a borough to fight their summonses. They can just do it over the phone. They can call us up and we can schedule it that day or that week. And so I encourage people to engage in the Oath hearing process, because we've made it much easier to engage in that process, and we're providing the assistance that's needed before the hearings. And then also, as I've mentioned, I am in discussions with the enforcement agencies, because I understand, in addition to all of these new regulations being placed on small businesses with COVID, you have all of the former violations that were already in place. And so this is just kind of additional regulations, and it can be extremely challenging for small businesses. So I have been in discussions with these agencies, and I would just say stay tuned as we come up with some solutions to help people with fines.
Forgive me for looking down as you were talking. I was definitely listening to what you had to say, but I wanted to also read out some of what it is that we're hearing folks write in with, in terms of what's the most important thing for the city to change to make it easier. One said, stop issuing summonses on issues related to reopening. One said, more open forum, reverse town halls, especially locally in each district, to tackle business education and community access issues, much easier for working citizens to attend. Support on accessing sanitization products and PPE, personal protective equipment, lower fines. I think the city could assist with grants or programs that connect small businesses with access to growth opportunities, possibly large firms or network exposure. Add a real and substantial compliance monitoring and reporting process to ensure that both prime contractors and agencies comply with minority and women-owned business enterprises and small business enterprise program requirements. Key is prompt payment. It starts with the agencies paying primes in a timely manner, and the comment goes on from there. Someone also wrote, cancel rent from March to the end of the pandemic, followed by 6 months of a state mandated reduction of 50% to help businesses get back on their feet. Someone wrote in notice to cure, and someone wrote in clear guidelines. Lou from East Harlem had also asked about permanent support for restaurants and any relief for the industry, i.e. covering liquor license renewal fees, reduction of fines, etc. A little more hard considering we are getting crushed in every aspect of our business. I'll get your responses to that in a minute, but I do want to go to Chris from Brooklyn, who I think is standing by for a comment. Chris, if you're there, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I'm just curious to know if the SBS is currently having a conversation
with the SLA and Chairman Bradley about what the runway is like for off-premise licenses, so restaurants and bars, to sell alcohol to go. I know that retailers who view restaurants as peers want to make sure that they have a good revenue stream, but also want to make sure that they are in a position where they feel like they're also being taken care of and looked out for, because we're not quite sure how long many of our neighbors are going to be able to do the same thing that we're doing.
Comments, panel, from Chris's point?
I suppose I could chime in and just say that, all of the city agencies are working feverishly together. And I would just add city and state agencies as well, day and night, 7 days a week. And there is absolutely conversations happening to make sure that there is collaboration, cooperation, and that each of the agencies are working together not to interfere with each other or to be obstructive. And I know that the SLA is involved in those conversations because they're an imperative part to make sure that food and beverage can be served and work together in this new outdoor seating program.
Melba, anything you wanted to share in response?
I think Ariel definitely covered it from the conversations that I've been on a weekly basis. Everything that Ariel says seems to be right. We will have more information on that as soon as the guidelines come out, which we're hoping will be out soon. But that has definitely been something that we at the New York City Hospitality Alliance, as well as Ariel's organization, that we've been fighting strongly for.
I want to come back, if I could, to a couple of questions related to what Melba was talking about a little earlier, cures and fines and kind of managing, trying to have a sort of a collaborative relationship between businesses and the city in order to affect compliance in the most effective way. And Commissioner Clutter and her team had a few questions related to this. So one of the questions that I've got up on the screen is, should hearing officers have the discretion to determine a fine amount? And Commissioner Clutter, I didn't even know that was a possibility. Can you say more about that?
Sure. I mean, right. So the state of play right now is that hearing officers do not have discretion. They hold the hearing, and if the person is found in violation, then there is a statutory fine that's been laid out in the rules of that particular agency. And so there's an argument to be made that when you don't give the hearing officers discretion, you have consistent results that aren't it's not determined by whether they're in a good mood that day or whatever the situation may be. And there is another argument that they should have more discretion especially when you're talking about a resident in Staten Island who gets a $100 fine for a sanitation violation versus a large business that gets a $100 fine that can easily pay that fine, whereas $100 to a homeowner might be more detrimental. So that was the impetus of the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky balance, I'm sure, to strike. And Melba, I would think as a business owner, you might want that hearing officer to have some discretion.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you look at most business owners, I think I personally feel that the city makes it very difficult for small businesses to operate. And, when I hear that so many other small businesses have started looking outside of New York over the last 3 years to open up their businesses or second or third locations, it really hurts me. I'm like I say, born, bred, and buttered here. I made a conscious decision, like so many other small businesses, to open up in a city that I love and that I live in. And to know that so many other small businesses are opening up their second and third locations outside of the city really does break my heart. Because when you think about a small business, we are the fabric of the community. We employ people from the community. Oftentimes, we're the first job for a lot of people that live in our communities. We're the job for the actor, for the actress. We're the job for the student when they're 14 years old and they fill out their working papers. And, and it's so much more than just a job. It's a way of life. Oftentimes, your first job, the skills that you learn at your first job can take you throughout life, throughout high school, throughout college, and it teaches you how to navigate through different situations. So it's more than just a job. It teaches you so much about life. And to hear that so many of our businesses feel that the city really bogs them down with fines, et cetera, and that New York City makes it very difficult for small businesses to operate, is heart-wrenching to me. So I'm super excited to have Commissioner Kletter as well as Commissioner Doris on board, so that we look at new ways so that we can coexist and do good for the city that we all so desperately love.
Again, if you're just joining us, this is A View from You. New York City is listening to small businesses as the city works through reopening aspects of its city life through this pandemic. You can call in to the toll-free numbers that are at the bottom of your screen to be able to make a comment directly on air, as several folks have tonight. You can also participate in our polls, and we have one up on the screen right now related to hearing officers potentially having discretion to determine a fine amount. So you can participate in English or Spanish by calling in. And I just briefly wanted to share a comment that was given to us over the Spanish line. It's a little bit lengthy, but I did want to share this with you all. It's a comment from Blanca, who is a resident of the Bronx. She says, I am 80 and work very part-time. My son works in health services. I am working because I've worked there a long time. Glad my mind and body is sound. I feel like working until I decide to stop. I'm feeling quite well. What just happened is like an illness because I'm so active and this sitting around is horrible. I am poor in Ecuador, but here I am too. And I have had the basics always. Feel very blessed by God. I've held up to 2 jobs at a time, sent money back to Ecuador, and I can rest knowing I've done the right thing. I came here at 28, kind of like Melba was saying, at a very young age, and I'm coming on 80. I feel privileged to have strength and ideas. I live with a son. We saw in our contract we don't pay off our house until 2026. I've been paying on it 20 years. It cost $175,000. The interest is more than the principal for poor people. Now we owe $600,000. People speak Spanish and they took advantage. I just wanted to share that this conversation tonight is about more than just the input in response to the specific questions that we've been asked. It's about hearing stories like the one that we just heard from Blanca, and we appreciate her having the bravery to share a story like that. It's an extremely painful story to read. But Commissioner Kletter and Ms. Pallitz, I imagine you have been hearing heart-wrenching stories, frequently over the last few months. Anything that comes to mind, or one in particular that stands out to you as you are thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, just last night I was walking, just trying to get some fresh air, and walked by a friend's restaurant and was expecting to see a big smile because I hadn't seen him in so long. And he just looked incredibly crushed, really, and terrified, and was just exclaiming, I can do this if it's easy, but it's already so hard. I need the city to make it easier for me and more fair. I can't do this. I love hospitality. I love my neighborhood. I love my business, but it is so hard. And I don't know if I can make it. And it's just heartbreaking to see the will to continue, but to see all they see are obstacles. And so I think what we really want to be able to do as a city is to be able to find a way to make it easier, to make it more fair, and to make it feel like there is a way and that we will get through this, and that we understand that this is the hardest thing that they have ever had to face in an industry that is already so incredibly difficult. And I think we want to try, as difficult as it may be, in this true crisis to find the opportunities to make corrections that made it so hard before, and to make it easier now, and to make it even better post-COVID when we eventually and inevitably get through this.
I have to say, as I'm listening to these conversations, especially ones that are related to kind of a monetary consequence of a business not doing something that they're supposed to, and Commissioner Kletter mentioned before, there's all the regulations they had to follow before the pandemic. Now the regulations they have to follow after it. I may be asking Commissioner Kletter an impossible question. I know you're not a legislator, but it makes me wonder whether this pandemic may lead to some sort of broader conversation about the very principle of using fines as a means of curing or correcting business behavior that isn't in compliance. I don't know if that's a conversation that's happening in any of your corridors, nor am I advocating for it by any means. I'm just curious about, given the hardships that we're seeing here and the fact that people are having to close their businesses down, whether that is a question that would even arise.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that there are a couple agencies who issue violations that are returnable to oath. One being the NYPD for certain CJRA violations. That's civil summonses for being in the park after dark, public urination, other smaller violations where we have a community service option, and cases can also be dismissed in the interest of justice. That's also true in the taxi and limousine commission cases as well, some of those. But for the most part, yeah, it is monetary fines, and it is a very valid question. I would say enforcement agencies would argue that it's the best way to discourage bad behavior, right? And we can't have people just leaving their trash all over the streets. We have an interest for health and safety reasons to enforce these violations, but it's a valid question, and it's worth thinking about and having discussions around the amount of fines, and especially during this unprecedented time, whether some other considerations should be taken into account.
And I'm curious, Melba, if you can think of an experience you had where you were, perhaps in a difficult situation. Maybe there was a violation that was being alleged. I'm not trying to embarrass you, but maybe you had a situation where you were able to get the city to, help you fix the problem and then correct it, and then it didn't happen again, and you were able to avoid an onerous fine, or whether it's mainly been the other kind of experience.
Well, never when I was able to avoid a fine, but I can tell you, we had a cover that was missing on one of our light fixtures, and the fine that we got for that was unbelievable. I would have understood it if the food wasn't held to temperature, or if there was something else. But to get the kind of fine that we got for not having a light cover on top of a fluorescent light that we had at the time, I just couldn't believe it. And that was one of the things I'm like, okay, it's not like the food is not held to temperature, or the waste is not. It was literally just because of a light cover not being done. So there are things like that when I look at it, or one of my friends told me, someone from the Hospitality Alliance said that when they were composting, one of their employees must have put the onion skins in with the paper. And it was literally a $10,000 fine for that. It was a huge restaurant, but it was like literally onion skins being put in with paper. So when you look at stuff like that, yeah, it does make it very, very difficult for a small business to operate in this city at times. So of course, it's not like we don't want to pay any fines, but when you have situations like that, it does make it very difficult. So I think it's about communicating, Commissioner, and I'm so happy that you are in this position, and that you're on this call, and Dr. Schuler, that we're having this forum, because I think that everything starts with communication. I think that's where it starts. It starts with having the conversations and hearing firsthand what our concerns are, and then sitting down collectively and being able to come up with the solutions that work for both parties.
just in the spirit of the situation you described earlier, where you might get a summons and then not just be dealing with the fine, but potentially a time-consuming matter. We've got another question up on the screen, and I'll ask the crew to ask this over the phone as well. Compared to hearings that are held in person, do you think you can defend yourself as well or less well using telephonic hearings? It's kind of ironic, given that we have a lot of folks on the phone tonight, and someone earlier mentioned having these reverse town halls over the phone is something that's convenient in terms of being able to share input, which is certainly nice to hear. But Commissioner Clutter, any thoughts there? I know you've had to do quite a few of these kinds of hearings of late.
Yeah, I mean, we were fortunate that we contracted with a company that allowed us to have this telephonic platform that we've been able to continue our hearings in a pretty seamless way. And we haven't had many complaints over the process so far. I've really been amazed at how well it's worked for most people. And obviously we will allow people who need or must come to an in-person hearing to do so. But given how well it's been working for most respondents and petitioners, this is going to be our default option for the next 6 months, both for the convenience, but also because we want to keep New Yorkers safe and healthy right now, and we don't want people traveling on subways and going into waiting rooms when they don't need to be doing that. So,
Melba, I would hope you wouldn't have to participate in any of these hearings, but do you have any thoughts as to pros and cons of being able to participate telephonically versus in person?
Well, I think that telephonically would allow us less time to be away from our business. So I have not had an opportunity, and I'm not upset about that, to have a telephonic hearing. Nothing personal, Commissioner, but yeah, it does seem like it definitely makes more sense. And if you look at the way that things are changing right now, I mean, who would think that we would be on a Zoom meeting or as many Zoom meetings as we all are on? So I'm looking forward to seeing, but I think that it will work better for a lot of small businesses because it will allow us to spend more time in our business while resolving issues quicker.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think that there are a lot of folks who are probably able to connect with people, whether in a business context or in a personal context, in totally different ways when they are in this situation right now of being forced to communicate over video or over the phone. But for someone who, gestures a lot and relies on, my volume modulation and all that other kind of stuff, I can imagine feeling a little bit hamstrung if I might be tied down to the phone. But I think that, given all of the pressures that restaurateurs are under, there may be a benefit, as you say, to just saving some time, if nothing else, by being able to participate remotely. There's an interesting comment that came up just now here on the text, and I would expect that Commissioner Clutter might have something to say about it. But
I do, yeah, because
the person said
not true.
Yeah, they say the courts are inclined to find guilty. I feel the default is guilty, and not being present reduces almost any chance of winning. So you would beg to differ.
Right. Yeah, about 50% of cases are dismissed when they're heard by a hearing officer before the oath tribunal. So that's why we highly encourage folks to participate in our process. We have a reputation as an impartial and fair adjudicatory body, and it's the facts don't lend itself to what this comment is saying.
It is okay to agree to disagree here on the program. That's part of why this is a two-way conversation. And I think that what's nice about the questions that your team and the SBS folks and we're going to get to Ariel's questions here in just a minute as well. What's nice about these questions is they're very, very much tied to the day-to-day kind of experiences that folks have been having, not just leading up to the pandemic, but right now. I would think that this information is highly relevant just to the work that you all are going to do. So as I get ready to pivot here for a second, could you maybe just reiterate to folks who may have just joined us what you and the Oath folks are hoping to do with the information that you gleaned from tonight's broadcast? Commissioner Clutter?
Sure. Yeah. As I mentioned, I'm in communication with a number of the enforcement agencies. And so I'm really looking forward to taking all of these comments and using them to provide us with strategies on how to ease the burdens for small businesses as we move forward to the reopening. And I think the timing of this town hall was perfect because the city is about on the precipice of reopening. And so this will be invaluable information that we'll use.
So let me, I'm going to pivot here for just a moment to Ms. Pallets. And I know as I get some questions ready for her that relate some to nightlife, I'm going to ask the team on the phone to get ready to ask the question that I'm going to read out here. This question relates to staff's ability to effectively monitor and manage outdoor dining guests. And, you know, I would assume that there's a lot of mixed feelings, and I want to hear Melba's take on this as well, mixed feelings about, you know, the possibility of outdoor dining in this context, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities. But Ms. Pallets, kind of what are you hearing and seeing, and what prompted this question from you?
Well, what prompted the question is, again, I think just as a former operator myself, I'll add that I owned a bar lounge in the city for 10 years. And the idea of having business all outdoors feels quite challenging. And the question was really about, what do you think the challenges are for you and your staff to manage not only your business and your customers, but also the crowd management aspect? And sometimes people feel they're expected to also be police officers and also bar owners and restaurant owners. So we've seen that it has been challenging. This will be a challenging situation to balance doing business, managing your sidewalk, managing your relationships with your neighbors. And we wanted to know how operators feel about their ability to do that and what support they might need from the city in order to tackle this together to make sure that it works for everyone.
And I'm curious what Melba may have to say about that, because obviously, you know, we're getting to the time of year when I would think that even though it can be hot part of the time, it's also pleasant to be outside. I know my wife certainly always picks outdoors when we have the chance. Your thoughts on this particular challenge and this question?
Yeah, well, my biggest concern right now, and we're all looking forward to having some type of outdoor seating. Believe me, if phase three goes as planned, what they're stating now, and this is subject to change, is that when phase three does come into effect, that we will only be able to have a maximum, and it could be less by that time, of 50% indoors. So as we all know, restaurants operate with very, very small margins to begin with. So cutting down our seating capacity to 50% almost makes it impossible for us to make a profit. We need to be at least 75% capacity in order to profit. So some of the concerns that I'm hearing from our members at the New York City Hospitality Alliance, as well as members with the Frederick Douglass Boulevard Alliance, are getting the information for the guidelines. It is crucial that we get this information as soon as possible. You know, we all want to be in compliance. However, we do need time so that we can prepare. PPE, having a marketplace so that we can have access to a centralized location that we can call in and order the signage, the PPE, and different things that are needed. The fact that we have to bring on additional staff to sanitize is important. Again, making sure that we're in guidelines, in compliance. So you look at the fact that we've been closed for 3 months and now we have to bring in additional staff. to make sure that we are adhering to the guidelines. How do we manage crowds? Loitering, that's a big issue. I have a managers meeting every Monday, and yesterday, our team, we were discussing what's the turnaround time for a table, because we know that the outdoor seating is going to be limited. Do we put a turnaround time? Do we put a time limit on it? So just going into all of the unforeseen situations, definitely things that we need assistance with as small business owners.
We know that some folks still wanted to get in by phone. We're coming up to the top of the hour and very close to the end of our broadcast. And so for folks that would still like to make a comment, you can do so still by pressing 0 and leaving a voicemail. So if you'd still like to be able to speak and won't get a chance to, you can still do so. And I'm sorry, press 9 and leave a voicemail. So again, if you're on the phone right now, you can press 9 and leave a voicemail, and the city staff will get it. And as we're getting to that point, I just want to reiterate to the audience that all of the comments that have been received tonight, whether they be by text message, by social media post, by website, by telephone, on air, off air, poll responses, you name it, are going to be compiled and packaged and delivered to the city agencies, not just that were represented here tonight in the form of Oath and SBS, but as much across the city of New York as we can, hopefully with Commissioner Clutter's help to get that out there, and Commissioner Doris. And I'm sure Ms. Pallets will help with that as well. But I do want to save some time here for both Commissioner Clutter and Ms. Pallets just to share some closing reflections. And as you do, I'm going to put one more question up on the screen just to allow folks to kind of make any final comments. It's a question that we asked earlier tonight about one thing that would make things easier. But Ms. Pallets, maybe something from you in terms of some reflections from what you've heard so far, including before you came on here with us.
Sure. Well, I really want to emphasize that I personally have complete and total confidence in the hospitality industry, in the small businesses of New York and New York in general, that we're going to get through this. Especially people in hospitality, they are born organizers, born problem solvers, born to manage and handle any issue. And I know that they will be able to handle this challenge ahead as long as the city supports them in a way that makes this easier, that makes it more fair, that they feel that the city is with them and not against them, and that they understand how much the city appreciates and respects this industry and what it contributes to our economy, our culture and identity. And for a very long time, there was a feeling that nightlife was sort of a liability, the bars, clubs, and restaurants of the city. But we know now that this $35.1 billion industry that supports 300,000 jobs and 700 million in tax revenue is an economic engine. And it is such a huge part of who we are. And that this city respects it, supports it, and is here for it every step of the way to make it more fair and to ease the burdens. And that is the way we're going to get through this together and with mutual respect and support. And I know that the city will get through this, and I have full faith in the nightlife and hospitality industry, that it has exactly what it takes to do so as well, with help.
Commissioner Clutter, any closing thoughts?
I mean, I think Ariel said it all there. I just want to add that this has been a great program. Thank you all again for participating. And I'm really honored to be taking on this role as Oath Commissioner. And I will certainly take these comments back to the agencies. And as I mentioned before, I encourage respondents and businesses to participate in the oath process. Our reputation is a fair and impartial hearing, and we take that very seriously. And we have our help center to assist folks who need assistance. And we're here to guide you through the process, but I'm proud to be in this role, and I thank you all for joining us.
Well, Commissioner Joni Clutter, Ms. Ariel Palitz, Ms. Melba Wilson, Commissioner Janelle Doris, thank you all so much for being our guests here on A View from You. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It is great to have been with you all tonight. And just before we roll some closing credits, I just want to give you all some information on our program. So there's our information, aviewfromu.com, and some ways for you to get in touch with us. I really do appreciate everyone's participation tonight. For the panelists' information, just on the phone alone, we had north of about 1,600 people that had participated on the phone, and then there are folks who participated, through texting and television and so forth. So, to everyone who participated tonight, we greatly appreciate it, and we will look forward to providing you with some updates through the City of New York and through aviewfromu.com as they are available. So, for everyone who participated tonight, this is Larry Schooler saying thank you very much for being with us, and good night.
Good night.
Good night.